Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I actually have an event tonight. Brandon, as you guys know, just started a new job, but the holiday party is tonight, so I wanted something soft but holiday friendly. Didn't want to go super cliche with greens and golds. I wanted something a little more cranberry, a little bit softer, and the eyes are a little bit more than I was anticipating, but honestly, I'm really enjoying the way this turned out. So if you want to see how we got all of this done today, make sure to keep on watching, and please don't forget to subscribe because I do upload 3 times a week, and that is the best way to stay up to date on all the fun stuff I'm posting. So if you're interested in the holiday soft festive glam, stay tuned. Alright, so the skin is already prepped and primed. Depending on your skin type, go for that. I will link everything I use down below, so even if I don't talk about it, you'll be able to see what I used. I did prep, as always, with the Oil and Pore Control Mattifier from Murad, and I took the Smashbox Oil and Shine Control Primer, SPF Primer. Both of which are oil control, both of which really help to blur and smooth out the pores. So this is the part where you're going to kind of deviate, and after this, everything will kind of be the same. But I'm going to be wearing my go-to flawless favorite cocktail of foundations, which is going to be the Dior Skin Forever, which unfortunately is discontinued. I've mentioned this foundation probably 10 million times because it is my absolute favorite foundation of all time. Because this is a Christmas glam and I am going to a holiday party tonight, I do have to make sure that I am as glammed up as possible, but I will be cutting that with the Makeup Forever Ultra HD. I wear the shade 260 in this one. And I am going to just kind of cocktail these together. In the past, the cocktail has been the Dior Forever with the Fenty, but I do want it to be a little less full coverage. I want it to be not so much like a sheer finish, but a little more of a natural finish. And I was about to put that on my beauty blender, but that's not what I want to do. I'm going to grab a little bit of this, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit, and because all of my brushes are currently in storage, getting shipped down, and I have a very limited amount, I am kind of changing the way I do this. Normally I would use a brush, but not the end of the world. And then I'm going to take a pump of the Dior, and I'm going to add that everywhere else. And then with my beauty blender, we're just going to blend all of those together. I mentioned this in my last video, and I know it's still going to be a little weird, but my monitor's over there, my mirror's over there. Normally I'm used to both of them being behind my camera, so it looks like, even when I'm looking at myself, it still looks like I'm looking at you guys, just while I'm figuring out this new setup, because again, I'm in a hotel right now. I'm not in like a new studio. So once I am in my new studio, things will be a little bit better, I promise. But we're just going to blend all of that foundation in, mix it together, and you'll see it's because we're using the Makeup Forever and not the Fenty, which is very skin-like and a little bit less coverage. You'll see how it shears out to just look like your skin but better. There are, like, you'll see in a few days when I do a New Year's Eve glam, which I'm filming, I think, tomorrow. When I do the New Year's Eve look, I go full coverage, I go full beat, I do the works. For like Christmas and holidays that are a little more low-key, I tend to do a little bit sheerer on the complexion, and then I will work that up by being a little more dramatic on the eyes. And you'll notice I didn't really like pack it on in this area because I am going to be going in with my concealer. I'm going to be taking the Benefit Boing Cakeless Concealer. This is in the shade 4. And this is what I'm going to use to kind of build up that coverage anywhere I typically have additional redness. And I'm actually going to work this all the way down the cheeks because we did go so sheer. Well, not sheer, but we did go a lot lighter than we normally do on the foundation, so I did want to make sure that I build that coverage up. I'm going to take also a tiny bit of the Jeffree Star Concealer because this is a tiny bit lighter, and I'm going to add a tiny bit just in the tear duct and right between the brows. And when I blend all that together, it's just going to give me a little bit more brightness. On a fluffy brush, and I will be taking a little bit of the Lancome Absolute setting powder. I like this one because it's a little pinky peachy, but there's no actual color to it. I'm just going to take this to lightly set down the under eye. And then just by swirling my brush in the cap of that a little bit, I'm going to then just kind of add a tiny layer of that powder everywhere. Now, I'm not baking the face, but I'm not going to kick this powder off yet. There's still like a very thin layer on top of the skin. I will take another brush just to kick that away, but while I let that kind of sit there, I'm going to grab my MAC Paint Pot, prime my eyelids, and I'll be right back. All right, so the eyes are primed and all of that extra powder is like sitting on the skin, but we're ready to pull it off. I'm taking a different brush, and first I'm just going to kind of pick up any of that powder that's still sitting on the face and kind of dust it away. Then going into my Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Airbrush Finishing Powder, just going to lightly pat into that. And then just in the cheek area, I'm just going to set a sight, and then I put it everywhere. I'm going to just put a little bit of this powder. I just find that this one diffuses light in such a beautiful way. Taking a tiny bit of setting spray, we're just going to take any of that powderiness down. And then just with the clean side of my Beauty Blender, just going to kind of press all of that into the skin. So because this is, again, like an evening look, I am going to contour, which I haven't been doing much lately. I'm going to take my Kat Von D Shade and Light, which has obviously seen some love, and I'm really just going to concentrate in the lightest shade and then a tiny bit of the medium. And rather than go in with this and like really sculpt the cheeks, what I'm going to look is I'm going to look forward, and just in the hollow of here, just going to lightly stamp. And when I put on my bronzer, it'll kind of blend all of that in together. But we really just want to set the hollows down to see where we are going to be sculpting. Now I know that doesn't seem like much, but once we go into our bronzer that is really going to pop, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a sheerer bronzer. This is the Fenty Beauty Bronzer in Shady Biz. And I'm just going to take quite a bit of that, and I'm just going to blend, really concentrating that in the temples. It is an evening event, evening affair, so I do want to make sure that in evening low lighting, it still pops, but we don't want it to be like overpowering, because again, we are going for more of like a natural office friendly Christmas party, holiday party type situation. We're not going for, this is not like New Year's Eve on the top of a New York City skylight. This is like something a little more low key, a little bit less intense. Then before I go into blush, I'm going to take the brightening shade right here, and I'm going to take that down the bridge of the nose onto the under eye, and that's going to blend a little bit of that brightness back over the cheekbone, so that any area where that bronzer and contour might have gotten a little too high, it's just going to correct that and allow us to make sure that nothing gets muddy. And then I'm going to take those same powders and really just focus them anywhere we put the concealer, just to re-brighten. Going back into that first powder brush with no additional powder, we're just going to kind of brush everything around. Using that little bit of, I'm in a hotel room and the cats are running around, so if you hear craziness, it's just my babies. But once we kick off any of that extra powder, this is also going to kind of melt everything together so that it looks like one face and not like layers and layers and layers and layers of powders. For blush, I am still loving the Ciate blushes from this month's BoxyCharm. I'm going to be taking Halo today, which is a little bit darker and a little bit more mauve-y, and I'm going to concentrate that on the cheekbones. And something I've been doing off camera lately is I've been taking quite a bit more and really just adding a tiny bit of blush into the contour area of the temples. I find that that just warms everything up a little bit more and adds another, it's a fresh element, just adding that little bit of blush back into the perimeters as opposed to just on the cheekbone, and as always, tiny bit over the nose. So I'm going to go quickly throw on my brows, just using my Milk Kush brow really quickly, and I'm going to be right back. All right, so brows are on, and I did also take a tiny bit of contour down the bridge of the nose. I've done it a million times, nothing you guys haven't seen. For glow on the cheeks, I'm going to take a tiny bit of, wrong setting spray, of that same Smashbox setting spray and just give the quick spritz on each cheek just to give it something to stick to so it's a little more blinding. And I'm going to be taking the Hot Damn Diamond Luxe Luminizer from Artist Couture. That was harder than it needed to be. I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the highest point of the cheek. That's beautiful. And I am actually going to take that around the brow. I like to do this so that when I go in with my eyeshadow, it'll soften it a little bit. But it's just such a pretty effect. And I really am just concentrating that on the highest point of the cheek. I don't want this to be like on the entire cheek just yet, and I'll show you why. The way that I do this is I add that base of highlight, and I will take whatever's left on the brush and just hit up the Cupid's bow. Then going into the same brush I used with my blush, I'm just going to lightly pull out the edges, and that's what's going to feather this onto the cheek. But you'll notice that pinpoint highlight is still on the cheekbone. And then that same setting spray, just going to lock it in place, and just grabbing my beauty blender, just really pressing that in, and that's going to help if you have any texture on the skin, so that the texture doesn't show, just the glow. So for today I will be using the Mini Controversy palette from Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star. I have not used this palette yet. I did use the big one, and I will link the video up here, just so you guys can see that if interested. Sorry, my brushes are falling over. But I am going to be using these today, and I'm going for something a little bit smoky, but you know, I'm going a little more natural, so I'm going to be focusing on some of these neutral tones. When I did my first video telling you guys that I wasn't going to be getting this palette because they canceled my order and all of that fun stuff, the biggest request I got was neutral tones out of this palette. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to start with Diet Root Beer right in the middle, taking that on a fluffy brush, and I'm just going to run that through my crease. On that same brush, I'm going to take a little bit of Expose, which is like a soft, light lilac, and I'm taking like a very small amount of that, and I'm going to blend that above the crease just to warm it up a little bit, because the Diet Root Beer shade is a little bit more on the neutral tone. And by adding that little bit of lilac, which is a little blue and a little red, it does just kind of soften it in the same undertone. But by building that brown in with it, it just gives a really pretty gradient. Next, I'm going to take on the Morphe M433, My Apology right here, which is very pretty. And this is a shimmer shade, so there is going to be fallout. But I did load up the brush, tap off quite a bit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus this on the outermost portion of the eye, just lightly building up that color. It's definitely translating a little bit more red on camera than it is in person. In person, I am getting more of that cranberry vibe. So just like I said, I am getting a little bit of fallout. So I'm going to grab some more of that translucent powder and just lay down a little bit, just to kind of prevent any fallout from ruining everything. Now, again, and I did say this before I even tried it, that is unfortunately what happens when you take a shimmer shade with lots of pigment and start to buff it out in the crease. You are going to get fallout. That is totally something I saw happening, and I didn't do anything to prevent it, so that is totally my fault. While I'm at this step, I am going to grab Demolition from Urban Decay, which is a brown liner. Just quickly throw that in my waterline. Normally at this point, I would like buff out that color, but I do want it to dry down a bit. So instead, I'm going to go into that same brush I've been using, and I'm just going to continue to diffuse that color up. Taking a clean brush, I'm just going to further diffuse out those edges, really blow it out and smoke it out. On a large pencil brush, taking a little bit of Diet Root Beer again, I'm just going to run that along the lower lash line. Really just connecting that to the outer portion of the upper lid. Now, normally for intensity, you can totally cut the crease. However, I'm taking my boyfriend's purse up here, which is very taupey. With the Jeffree Star formula, I will tell you, and I've said this before, it is so absolutely vibrant that you don't even need to cut the crease. As long as you take a tiny bit of setting spray and just wet your shadows, it will be so intense that you don't need to actually take concealer. See? No need. So we're just going to basically cut the lid with this shade and blend it about halfway across the eye. All right, I'm going to go do this on this eye and then throw on my lashes, and I'll be right back. All right, lashes are on. I did throw on a tiny bit of liner just to kind of accentuate that shape, but honestly, completely optional. I do kind of love the way that this is kind of giving me like, it's almost Valentine's vibes, but because the lighting is washing it out, it's making it look a little more pink. I promise in person it is very cranberry. All right, so for lip, I'm going to grab, I don't want to be cliche, but honestly, like, with this lip, there's only one combination that makes sense, and that's going to be Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury. The most beautiful nude lip ever. I'm going to use, if I can find it, there it is, the corresponding lip liner, just to give myself a little definition. And then the matching lipstick. And then just to make it pop, I am going to grab my Dior Lip Maximizer and just a tiny bit of this. Where is my gloss brush? And I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the tiniest center of the bottom lip. One last time, setting down the face just to lock it all in. And I do want to soften the eyeshadow just a little bit. So I'm going to grab the shade Cry on My Couch on a fluffy brush. And all I'm going to do with that is blend the uppermost part of the eye by taking that lighter color. All that's going to do is just soften it a little, make it a little bit less dramatic. Because again, I did say I wanted something softer. And next thing I know, I had a drag queen smoky eye. And then with that brush, no additional product, just going to buff out under the eye just to make sure that everything looks nice and finished. And that is the finished look. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. It's definitely a little more cranberry than I was going to go for. I wanted very Christmassy. And honestly, though, this is very holiday appropriate. I feel like everybody's going to do gold, and I've already done a million green looks on here, so we're going cranberry today. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.